You're watching 535.
This is 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
We're live from the Capitol, and 535 starts right now.
Permitting Reform and Transportation Week is brought to you by the Business Roundtable.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, July 14th, and this is 535 live from the Casten Rotunda. I'm Susan Davis. Whether or how to regulate prediction markets is a debate raging across the country in state houses and here in Washington, D.C. Two congressmen who have concerns about how these prediction markets could affect national security join me now. Congressman Eugene Vindman of Virginia and Troy Downing of Montana. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having us.
So let's back it up a little bit, because I think for some context here, back in April, there was an active duty service member who was indicted by the Justice Department for making prediction bets around the capture of Venezuela President Maduro. You both want to make sure that that kind of thing can never happen again. Mr. Vindman, I'll start with you. What are you trying to do here?
Absolutely. So I spent 25 years in the Army, active duty, half that time as a JAG and prosecutor. So maintaining good order and discipline is critical to having an effective force. And so having soldiers and civilians that are privy to classified information and non-public government information that are placing bets is a betrayal of brothers and sisters in uniform. It puts the mission at risk. It puts lives at risk. And so this is about making it absolutely clear that whether this is new technology or not, prediction markets are only a few years old, that this is not appropriate behavior, and it undermines the unit, the mission, and trust in the fellow service member to the left and right of you.
And if I understand this correctly, language you support is in the NDAA right now?
Right now, it is actually a proposal to have the Secretary of Defense issue a general order or regulation, which would be punitive under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if a service member fails to obey that and uses information that they have and places bets in a prediction market, they can be subject to prosecution under the UCMJ. It's not in the NDAA yet, but this is just to issue the
It's basically asking the Pentagon to take care of its own business.
Yeah, and just to kind of parlay a little bit of what Congressman Vindman said there, we both served in uniform. We both have seen what that looks like, and we know what it's like to go to war. We know how important that is to preserving this country. And we've already decided that a sports figure can't bet on whether their team wins or loses. We've already decided that, but this is such a higher level, because this can put lives at risk, this can put national security at risk, this can put this country at risk. This is such a higher level of effect if we're betrayed by somebody who makes a bet for personal gain on something that they may have an influence on changing. It's absolutely something that we need to get in front of.
I'm really curious about both of your opinion on this, just because, as you both noted, you served. When you saw that news about the active duty Special Forces soldier being indicted, what was your reaction to that? Was it surprising to you?
Oh, it angered me.
Yeah.
It angered me. I mean, everybody's talking about, insider trading, or like I mentioned, manipulating the outcome of a game or something. When you're talking about the lives of Americans, you're talking about national security, and having something for personal gain that can basically completely disrupt that. It angered me. I'm sure it did you as well.
I was outraged to hear that it was a senior.
But was it outrage in the I never thought this would happen, or it was only a matter of time before something like this happened?
I think it was probably the latter. This is a new space, and it's obviously inappropriate. It's immoral. It's unethical. now we want to make it clear that it's also illegal, although I think there are probably other provisions that can be drawn on. But if you think about it, think about how this plays out. These are public bets, right? So they're completely open. A potential adversary can see bets being placed at the last minute and start to anticipate. And we're talking about, you know, hours or, you know, a couple hours, a few days. That's all the time it takes to sort of place additional air defense assets or move troops around to make a mission much more dangerous to the service members that are executing it.
Right, and just to add on a little bit to that, you know, you asked on whether it was a surprise or not. You know, nobody goes into the military without understanding if you have access to information. You know, the old saying,
well
you know, loose
established.
lips sink ships. I mean, there's nobody that goes into there that doesn't understand the ramifications of doing that. There's nobody that goes into the military that doesn't know that that's wrong. The fact that this individual did something so egregious is really, you know, a light on the lack of character of that person, because they understood that was wrong. And we need to make sure we make an example of that so that doesn't happen again.
Can you be more specific about how broad this ban would be? Does it affect everyone that works in the Pentagon, including civilian employees and contractors, which make up a lot of the Pentagon workforce?
Yeah, so principally it affects any uniformed service member. So it would be an outright ban on using prediction markets on information that is classified or non-government, non-public governmental information. For civilians, it would be an order that if you violate could cost you your job. There probably is a place for additional legislation if necessary. It's something that we would look at to see if we need to specifically prohibit that kind of trading on classified information. I suspect it's already prohibited now,
but it's not a wholesale ban on prediction markets. Like if you wanted to bet on the winner of American Idol, could they do that, or it's just related to any matter of national security?
It's related to national security. I mean, we don't want to over-regulate a new market, new technology. I don't think there's an interest in doing that, but this is about protecting American national security, our service members, and, you know, the trust and confidence that service members place in each other.
Have you gotten any response from the Pentagon over this?
I've not personally, but I've heard from a lot of colleagues that this is something that we need to do. You know, both of us, like I said, we both served in uniform, and we've got a lot of colleagues here that have also done that, so that has been part of the conversation there.
Do you think that you would like to see more legislative language to sort of codify this into law, even beyond a Pentagon directive?
Well, I think it should be. Well, and it's interesting because there's this line where everybody understands the repercussions if you have access to privileged or you know, information, and not letting that out. Everybody understands. We used to have a SCIF, you know, a secure facility for secret information, for classified information, and there was a big sign on the door that said deadly force authorized. Nobody walked to that SCIF without understanding the repercussions of letting that out. So anybody that has access on deployments, on troop movements, on actions, on anything that's secure information should be covered by this and should be prohibited from this, because again, this is something that's beyond a monetary loss. This is something that can affect this entire nation.
Do you see this as sort of a tipping point event? Because when I look at this situation, you can kind of see how this could happen across basically every branch of government. You could see Justice Department lawyers betting on outcomes of cases. You could see members of Congress betting on outcomes of whether the NDAA will become law and when.
Right.
I mean, how much does this sort of new world worry you, and how much more do you think needs to be done here?
Well, I think it falls in the same line that is another conversation that a lot of my colleagues are having on what are the implications of insider information on using from, you know, trading stocks for making financial decisions. What are the implications there? Obviously, we have laws prohibiting that, and that should also extend to making bets on that. If you have inside non-public information about the bet that you're making, I think that should, you know, be prohibited as well.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to start looking at broader ideas on where we put those sideboards and what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, so I mean, the letter to the Secretary of Defense on specifically preventing service members and DoD employees from trading on this information is one effort. I have a separate effort I'm leading to ban this type of activity for members of Congress and family, similar to the stock trading ban.
Sure.
And The idea is simple: is that there's a trust deficit between the American people and members of Congress. In the service, we expected higher standards from our leaders, and for some reason, in this institution, the standards appear to be lower.
Yeah.
And I think that is unacceptable. And I would love to see the restoration of some confidence in our elected officials.
Yeah. And it goes beyond just the breakdown of trust, which is obviously something that's of paramount importance. Again, it puts us all at risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, particularly when it comes to Congress, is certain things can be legal but unethical, right? I also wonder if there's a question of, should this be an ethics rule in the House? Because you could see there could be a lot of gray area here.
I would
and
certainly
things
support that.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have any concerns about how these prediction markets are regulated more broadly? Right now, they're regulated under the CFTC as a financial commodity, and there seems to be some debate over whether that's the appropriate oversight body for this.
I don't have any concerns because I'm on the Ag Committee, and the subcommittee that I'm the vice ranking member is the Commodities Subcommittee. So my subcommittee regulates this. I think we can do an appropriate job in that subcommittee. So I don't have any concerns that the jurisdiction is not in the right place.
Right. Yeah, I think that there are a lot of folks looking closely at this, and whether it's under, as a commodity or as gambling, as long as we have clear rules of the road, I'm comfortable with that.
I'm also curious about, and again, this goes not to the legal, but sort of how these prediction markets factor into our political life now. There's a lot of conversation about how they could play in, say, the 2028 presidential election. I wonder, just as politicians, how you look at that and see these markets as sort of indicators and how they're used as indicators in elections, and if you have any concerns about that.
Well, I think it's like a lot of polls. It's gee whiz information, and it's interesting.
Although
if you
some
see
would argue
yourself,
they think they're more accurate than some polling sometimes.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure they do, and time will tell as we start to see a couple of cycles of that. But I kind of treat it like polls. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. You never know who might be manipulating something one way or the other to try to get a response.
Yeah.
And time will tell.
Yeah, I've had meetings with representatives from this industry. And the way they couch this is it's a hedge, it's sort of insurance bet, more broadly. But as far as a prediction tool, once you have what they describe as liquidity, so you have a few thousand people participating, and they're putting money on it, right? Which means they have skin in the game. Then they're actually telling you the truth about what they think rather than what they think people want to hear, and so. I'm open to this as sort of as a new technology. If we have the proper guardrails in place, I think it could be valuable. But we do need to make sure that we, in the national security, confidential information space for government employees, whether it's Congress or uniformed service members, Department of Defense officials, that we have the right guardrails.
There's always the possibility, though, that somebody is willing to put money into something they don't believe is going to happen in an effort to sway public opinion.
Sure.
So, it just depends on what your goals are.
Yeah, I mean, also one of the realities here, and we talked to recently, one of your former colleagues, Sean Patrick Maloney, who's now advocating for these prediction markets. But one of the realities they seem to be is they're just really popular. It seems like this is a new thing that it clearly is not going anywhere. So it's something that people are going to have to deal with in some capacity.
Well, I think there's some just pure entertainment value there, just looking to see who's betting on what. It is kind of interesting to see all that coming out. And my opinion, to each their own, but when it starts to affect things like insider trading or manipulating an election or national security, then that's our role, in my opinion.
Yeah. So as somebody that's not a consumer, I don't trade in these products, but I do pay attention to them. Again, I think there's some value to them, but where I'm concerned is that they're regulated. There are some offshore markets, and they're completely not regulated. So, for instance, you could place bets on whether the U.S. is going to seize Karg Island, which is in, right now off the coast of Iran, on whether American pilots that are down are going to be rescued. That is completely inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. The markets that are in the United States that can be regulated, that can be controlled, I think are where we should, we should apply effort to that and completely restrict access to the extent possible to those offshore markets.
Yeah, thank you for making that distinction, because I do think it is worth noting, just for clarity, that soldier use poly market, which is not a domestic U.S. prediction market. Also, I should note that he has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Have you had any conversations with senators about this? I imagine your position on this is widely shared among senators in the national security space as well.
I have not had direct conversations yet with senators. But.
No.
Can I step back more broadly too, just looking ahead to this week? What's your sense of what's going to happen with the NDAA, and what concerns do you have that the House seems to be pretty jammed up right now? Maybe on unrelated matters, but it is affecting the underlying policy.
Yeah, well, I'm hopefully optimistic that we start to get back to regular order, get a rule passed, and start to do what people sent us here to do. And I think that there's light on the end of the tunnel. I think that we are going to be able to achieve that definitely within the next 2 weeks.
Do you share that confidence?
Yeah, so I think my colleague would have better insight on whether a rule is likely to pass or not in his caucus. But I participated. I'm on the House Armed Services Committee. I participated in the markup for the NDAA. I voted for it out of committee. Obviously, we have to see. I pay close attention to what the amendments are that are coming out, what will be attached to it, whether I can support the final product. But for a 25-year Army vet who represents a district with nearly 20,000 active duty service members, 3 military installations, and tens of thousands of Americans that work in national security space, I'm concerned about making sure that we are secure, that we're pacing our peer threats, while balancing also how much we're spending on national defense versus other critical priorities like healthcare and Social Security and things like that.
Where are you both coming at the request from the administration for more defense spending before the end of the year?
Well, I think we need to look at that very carefully. We need to make sure that we have the resources to defend our interests and continue to do that, support our troops, support the defense of this nation. A lot of times the devil's in the details and saying, what's asked and what's actually needed, and we'll see where that calculus ends up. But I do understand that we're going to need funding, and where that number falls remains to be seen.
What do you think about it?
I'll say again, the proposal is for a defense budget of around $1.5 trillion, right? That's the NDAA plus reconciliation plus supplemental. And the president said a few months ago that we can't afford to pay for child care, Social Security, and health care because we have to pay for national defense. Look, I think there's a conversation to be had about what that amount is. But when we have a nearly $40 trillion national debt, I think we need to look at this very carefully and allocate finite resources in a way that best serves the American people.
Yeah, I think we need to look at the whole package, and I'm very very happy with the bipartisan work that's happening in the Appropriations Committee. I think that Chairman Cole and Ranking Member, I think they've been doing a great job, but we do need to be very cognizant of finite dollars and our national debt. Those are all big issues we need to keep, in terms of prioritizing, what we need to take care of.
I want to thank you both for your time on this conversation, but if you'll indulge me before I let you go, we like to do a short segment at the end of our interviews called our 1-minute segment, in which we ask very difficult questions that will be hard to answer.
Well, Congressman Vindman can go first.
No, I'm going to ask the Montana congressman first, because this is a good question. What do you consider the best food in your district, with the caveat that your district is obviously very large?
Well, one thing that I like to brag about is my district. I have more cows than people. So my constituents are mostly bovine. So, if you're not eating steak in Montana, you're missing out, because we produce some of the best beef in the world, and I'm really proud of my ranchers that produce that. And you want a good steak, come to Montana.
What are you going to eat in your district?
We also have cattle and corn and wheat, and we have a very large ag industry in my district and across Virginia. But there's a great taqueria that I recently discovered, and so I'm a big fan.
You can't say each other. I'm going to preface this, but Can you name someone who you would consider one of your favorite people on the other side of the aisle?
Oh boy. I mean, there's so many that I've actually enjoyed working with. Janelle Bynum, I've done some bills. She's co-sponsored some bills with me on financial services. Hillary Skolton has co-sponsored things with me on small business. I mean, there are a lot of folks. People get focused on kind of the loud fringe, but there's a lot of folks that are here to get good policy through, and you identify them quickly and say, okay, this is somebody that we may not agree on everything, but we can get things through. And I think I've identified quite a few of those where we actually are working together to deliver for the people that put us here.
Well, I don't have any permanent favorites. I mean, currently I was going to say
it
Troy,
can be a
but that's
rotating
okay.
list. I get that.
That's
I have
okay.
that in my own life.
So I in seriousness, I've introduced something like 60 bills, 45 of which have been bipartisan. So I have a number of colleagues on the Republican side that I work with closely to fix important issues, whether it's certain new classes of narcotics or ag issues, veterans issues. I would say there's a handful of folks that I work with on a regular basis that are good folks. I really like somebody like Fitzpatrick and their stance on Ukraine, which I think is probably the most important national security issue that we're facing right now, like at today, rather than something that maybe a few years down the road.
If you were given the ultimate power to fix one thing about how Congress worked, what would you focus on?
I started the last time.
I would say, sometimes we find ourselves very siloed, and when I served in the military, it didn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, it didn't matter what part of the country you're in, you're sort of focused on the mission and focused on serving the American people. I think the sort of partisanship, party alignment that I find here, and sometimes even the lack of civility are problematic. So,
I meant to ask you earlier too. I think it's very interesting that you, I don't know if you've introduced the legislation, but you support the idea of banning members of Congress from becoming lobbyists after they leave Capitol Hill.
That's right. Yeah, and again, I think the self-enrichment, self-promotion motivation should not really be a factor in public service. It was never a factor in my military service, and I guess in some contexts this is even a higher office. It's a constitutional office, certainly, and so those extraneous motivators, to the extent that we can remove them and get the right people that are focused on the right things, I think is a good
I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to let you go. This is the hardest one of all. What's your go-to karaoke song?
It's got to be Baby Shark. I'm kidding.
No take backs.
Take that one.
I mean, I'm a big fan of West Virginia, although I represent Virginia. Just like we sang it as a family on road trips, so we just dropped the western part.
Which West Virginia? Almost Heaven, West Virginia? Is that?
No.
Oh.
Oh my God! Now I'm blinking. I can picture his face, but he's the 70s singer.
I'm not sure.
You don't know the West Virginia?
John Denver.
John
Yeah,
Denver,
almost,
yeah. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Oh,
Almost
I missed
Heaven,
that.
West
I missed what you
Virginia.
said, yes.
Also, one of the songs for the Team USA in the World Cup, which I've been watching a lot of.
And I have to add a little color too, because I have a brand new 4-month-old granddaughter. So children's songs are starting to pop up in my life again.
Yeah, I'll send you my playlist. Congressman Downing, Congressman Vindman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We have to take a very quick break, and we will be right back.
We'll be right back.
Here on Capitol Hill, the 535 are in charge, the members of Congress. But in a democracy, in the people's house, you need to be heard as well. So if you have questions or comments or ideas, submit them to us at 535.news, because here with us, the floor is yours.
for all it takes to be a property owner and the prosperity that comes with it. You have an alliance working for you. The American Property Owners Alliance. Real estate experts, financial professionals, and community leaders standing together to support, protect, and represent millions like you. Homeownership is the American dream. We're here to keep it that way.
Every new day is a chance to turn challenges into opportunities for rural America. When we unlock homegrown solutions like E15, our communities don't just keep up, they pull ahead. E15 isn't just a fuel, it's lower prices at the pump and homegrown energy that keeps America strong. Congress, deliver E15 year-round and fuel the comeback. Grow markets for farmers, shrink costs for consumers, fuel a win for all Americans.
$1.5 trillion is parked on the sidelines. Projects that would help create good-paying American jobs are stuck in years of burdensome reviews. Permitting reform would unlock over 650 major U.S. infrastructure projects, from new roads and bridges to bringing more energy online. With faster, more efficient permitting, we can unleash America's economic potential. Let's move from waiting to building. Ready, set, let's build.
There are moments that shape an organization's future. A policy shift, a crisis or investigation, a market shock. When that moment hits, the clock starts. Markets move in minutes. Regulators, employees, and customers respond instantly. Narrative helps leaders respond with pace, engage stakeholders with precision, and position brands with perspective. So when challenges emerge, you can navigate complexity and lead with clarity before the narrative is defined for you.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
Welcome back to 535 News. I'm Leanne Caldwell, the Chief Washington Correspondent for Puck News. Joining me now is Congresswoman Laura Friedman of California. She sits on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and also the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. She represents California's 30th District, which includes Burbank, Glendale, West Hollywood, and parts of LA and Pasadena. That's quite an area that you represent, a big, obviously populous area. Today we're dividing into the bicameral bipartisan legislation to cut red tape on federal investments in housing. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So there was just a bipartisan housing bill that passed Congress. The president did not sign it into law, but it is law now. He let it float into law. But you have different legislation that would also address the issue of housing and affordable housing. Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. So we have a few pieces of legislation, and just to be clear, I represent Los Angeles, the heart of LA, with Hollywood and areas around that, and housing is the biggest crisis we have locally. Mm-hmm. People can't afford rent. Other people, particularly young families, feel that owning a home is completely out of reach for them, not just now, but at any point. And people leave, and when they do leave, they cite the high cost of housing as the #1 reason why people are leaving Los Angeles. So this is a huge problem across California, and it's growing across the country. So I was in the California legislature for 8 years and worked on housing every single day. So when I came into Congress, I have that same priority. So one of the pieces of legislation that I've introduced is the Cut Red Tape for Housing Act, which has to do with NEPA reviews of housing, where when affordable housing is being built, even if it's infill, even if it's a donut shop that's being taken down to build an apartment building for senior citizens, an environmental review has to be done if there's federal money involved. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It drives up the cost of building that housing, and often that cost is passed directly along to renters. And there's no purpose for it. So my bill would say that for infill housing that's on previously developed land in urban centers, we wouldn't have to do that kind of environmental review anymore, because Waivers are being granted to these projects, but after stalling them for sometimes up to a year and adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of the projects. It doesn't make any sense, and we're getting rid of it.
So what is the holdup? Why is it progressing?
It is progressing, and there is a piece of it in the road to housing, but it's not as complete a piece. That will help to
streamline. And the road to housing was the bill that had just passed.
Correct, and it's our bill is bipartisan, and there's support for it, widespread support, and I don't know of any opposition to it, but things move really slowly here in Congress. So I'm going to keep pushing for this bill every single day, because sometimes the project getting built or not depends on it. And the other piece of legislation is our bill called the Build Hubs Act around very wonky programs called RIF and TIFIA that are about developing near high quality transit. And this would allow those existing programs to be extended, but to actually be more effective to build housing. Right now, they've never been used for affordable housing. Given that that transit-oriented development is in the title of the programs, we want to fix them to make sure they can be used to build affordable housing as well.
Explain that a little bit. So
Sure.
Transit funding for housing.
So this is transit-oriented development. So what this is saying that when you build, let's say, a subway stop, you want to have the land around that be intensively developed, because people are now taking that transit, they're taking a train to go somewhere. When they come out of the train station, that's where you want there to be things that people can walk to.
Yeah.
You want amenities, you want hotels, you want housing to be right near that transit, so that people who are commuting can actually walk to the train and get where they need to go, or pop out of that train station and walk to where they need without having to drive long distances. So that's the way that cities operate, right? You have your subway stations near your developments. So this program is supposed to help to build that kind of infrastructure and to build those developments near transit. Don't forget, for this high quality transit, we've invested often billions of dollars in taxpayer money. You don't want to build a train station and have nothing around it.
Right.
That's what the programs were supposed to do. But what they failed at doing is to support any housing near that same transit. So this would tweak those programs, those existing programs, extend them, but now allow those resources to be used to build affordable housing near transit.
So who are the opponents?
Well, again, we don't really have opponents, except for just the processes within Congress that make things difficult to move. And right now, unfortunately, while we've got the Republican Party controlling all three branches of government, we've seen bills just grind to a halt. We've seen the work of the House grind to a halt, where they've been unable to hold their coalitions to pass just basic legislation to drive down costs for Americans. Building more affordable housing near transit, it should be something that we all support. It'll make it cheaper to live for people. It'll bring people closer to where they work and to closer to the tools they need to cheaply get to where they work. Instead, we still are forcing people many times to own a car and drive long distances to get to work. Here in Los Angeles, we have people, because of the housing costs, being pushed hours away from where they work and having to drive for hours to commute to jobs. It increases congestion, and it makes life a lot more unpleasant and less affordable for those people. We want to give them a chance to live closer to where they work, or closer to transit that they can take to get to their jobs.
So you have worked in the state legislature. You are now a member of Congress, a freshman member of Congress. Why is this? Can you explain to me and to everyone why housing is so difficult to solve? What was the state legislature unable to do, and what can Congress perhaps do?
Well, it's a complicated area, but what the state legislature in California focused on was removing the bottlenecks that stop people from building housing. Sometimes that's local zoning, where people just say, we just don't want any building in our community. Meanwhile, while still having sometimes hundreds of thousands of people commuting into those communities to work, but refusing to add the housing. And it doesn't just keep people sort of from the outside coming in, but it also prevents people's kids from living in the neighborhoods they grew up in. So sometimes it's making sure that communities build the housing that they need as they grow, build the housing that they need for their own population. Sometimes it's building housing that specialized populations need, like for seniors, or for people who are in recovery, or people who have disabilities, and making sure that we have enough housing for them. I will tell you that in Los Angeles, where we see people becoming homeless on a daily basis, the fastest growing group of homeless people in Los Angeles are seniors. Not people that are addicted to drugs, not people that, aren't working because they're lazy or something. It's literally seniors who have given to their communities, who have raised kids, who have worked jobs, who are seeing their rents increased, and because they're on fixed incomes, they can't afford it. We need to have places for people like that to be able to live that they can afford, and that's where building affordable housing comes in.
Great. On another topic,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Paramount.
Sure.
A dozen state attorneys general yesterday filed suit to block the merger from moving through. The California Attorney General, Bonta, was leading this effort, and do you support what he's doing?
I do, and it's really unfortunate that this administration, the Trump administration, has defanged our federal regulators. Everything from the FCC to who review mergers, to the EPA that keeps our air and water clean. They have just defanged these regulators and said, hey, large corporations, you guys do whatever you want. They don't enforce white-collar crime laws. They don't enforce laws that we have on the books against monopolies. So it's falling to attorneys general to enforce the law. These are federal laws that are on the books right now for very good reasons. And I think that it's correct that when you have a mega merger that's going to have huge implications for consumers across the country, for people who stream, for people who go to the movies, and certainly for my constituents in Los Angeles who are worried about losing their jobs, that we have people who are tasked with making sure people follow the law, review this merger, and that's what's happening here.
Why will it be bad for your constituents?
Well, it certainly would be bad for my constituents if we have one of these two studio lots close. It would be bad for my constituents if we have efficiencies leading to thousands of people being laid off. It will be bad for my constituents if the creators who rely on being able to pitch their shows, pitch their movies to studios now have less of those operations open to fund productions. It'll be bad for my constituents if we have less production happening in Los Angeles and less sound stages working and less productions being made. It doesn't just affect the people that are directly employed behind the cameras. It also affects the coffee shops and the caterers and the dry cleaners. It has ripple effects all across our economy. And in a time when Los Angeles is struggling to rebuild after devastating fires that destroyed thousands of homes, if at the same time those people lose their jobs, it's catastrophic.
There's a lot of skepticism that this effort is going to be successful. Where do you stand? Is this a stalling technique?
Well, I can't speak for the AGs that signed on to this, the 10 AGs across the country that signed on to this, but I will tell you that there's a reason why we have laws against monopolies. Now, I'm not going to tell you in advance whether this creates a monopoly or breaks those laws, but whether it's the healthcare industry or the auto industry or the entertainment industry, we don't have capitalism that works fairly. We don't have a fair platform for all businesses if we allow for corporate consolidations to gobble up every independent business. It's bad for everyone, certainly bad for employees and workers, but it's also bad for consumers. There's a reason why we broke up Ma Bell back in the day, because we recognized that it was terrible for consumers to have just one company delivering all of the phone service in this country. And we had laws as well about the entertainment industry to say we need a plethora of voices. We need to make sure we don't have just one news channel or 3 news channels. We need a variety of news channels. We need a variety of different production companies out there. And we certainly need for television stations to be able to negotiate with more than one content creator. So there are reasons why we have antitrust laws in this country, and we need to strengthen those and not erode them.
You led a letter with 34 members of the California delegation opposing this merger, supporting Rob Bonta, the Attorney General.
To be clear, it wasn't to oppose the merger. It was saying that we should evaluate the merger to make sure that it doesn't break the law, and that's a fundamental difference. I'm not trying to pick on one company or another in any of this. I want to make sure that we don't end up with a giant monopoly that ends up in 5 years, we look back and say, boy, that was terrible for consumers. Look how expensive our streaming service is now, or look at how few choices we have to go to the movies, or look at the fact that we now have 2 studio lots or 1 studio lot sitting vacant in Los Angeles. That's what we need to make sure going into advance, that this is not going to be a net negative for
I guess my
California.
point is that the California delegation is active on this, but you don't hear about it much else outside of California. Is that a problem? Should more members of Congress be more outspoken about this?
Well, it's not just California that's bringing this lawsuit. It's a bunch of different states. So let's not forget that we have 10 states involved. So they are seeing the implication of this for their consumers, let's say, across the board. And I would say for every state, whether it's entertainment or it's hospitals or any other sector, we are seeing unprecedented levels right now of corporate consolidation in this country.
Yeah.
We see massive layoffs across every sector as a result. That, coupled with what's going to come with AI for job losses, is something that every elected official should be paying a lot of attention to, whether or not you're a Democrat, because all of our constituents are going to suffer if they don't have a place to go to work every day.
Great. Congresswoman, very quickly, we are
Sure.
out of time, but I want to ask you, you've agreed to 5:35, 1 minute, but I have a question specifically about your new tenure on the Hill.
Sure.
What's your favorite thing about being a member?
My favorite thing is that I feel like I'm part of history, I'm part of American history. And then in this moment, defending democracy and making sure that our country has a great path forward for the next 100 years is crucially important. And I love being part of that effort. I love this country. I care deeply about it. And walking into the Capitol building every day, I get such a thrill that I'm part of this democracy and this great experiment, and I want to see it succeed.
Great. Congresswoman Laura Friedman, thanks so much for joining 535.
Thanks for having me.
And we will be right back after a short break.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
In Afghanistan, the IED actually penetrated the vehicle between my legs, but it was a miracle that we all survived in the vehicle.
When I began the process to separate from the military, it was during COVID. And with the issues back home, we just knew we got to come back home and take care of the family. So we had to go stay at our mom's house. And there's already 3 people living there, and 5 of us, or 8 people. How many bedroom? Like a 2-bedroom. It was like a 2-bedroom house. We were desperate.
So then when we transitioned to Texas, it was very much so like, what are we gonna do now?
When I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm, and I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. They've really been a blessing.
I'm in the Permanent Homes for Veterans program. They built a house for me, and it's amazing.
We got the call, this is your house, and the kids and I took off just to go sit in the driveway and cry. It's life-changing. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account.
The best way to describe Operation Homefront is that it's like a family, because they're always there for you.
I would say you guys are angels behind closed doors.
Operation Homefront has impacted my family in a way that's probably going to be passed down through my family's history. It's definitely going to be a story that's going to be told for generations.
America leads the world in medicine development.
It matters.
We get new medicines first, nearly 3 years faster.
5 million Americans go to work because we make medicines here at home.
And not relying on other countries keeps us safe.
But China is racing to overtake us.
Will we let them?
Or will we choose to stay ahead?
When America leads,
America cures.
Let's tell Washington to keep us in the lead.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
Welcome back to 535 News. I'm Leanne Caldwell with Puck News. As more young Americans are interacting with chatbots, the more dangerous those interactions can become. 2 House members have joined forces from each side of the aisle to try to address that. Joining me now are Republican Congressman Blake Moore of Utah and Democratic Congresswoman Valerie Foushee of North Carolina. Congress people, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's talk about this legislation. There is a lot of efforts to try to rein in what is happening online with young people. So you all are focusing specifically on chatbots. First of all, before we get to the legislation, tell me, how did you two join up together? Congresswoman, you go first.
Well, I would say that because we have this interest in protecting our children, and we understand that Congress needs to be on the forefront of making sure that we are protecting our kids, we were able to join forces.
How did you guys meet?
Right, so I mean, given the fact of North Carolina and Utah, both tech-centered states doing a lot of tech innovation, but also, I mean, Utah's the youngest state in the nation with obviously a younger population and a need to make sure that we're protecting children from some of the ills that come from this. Our teams worked really hard on kind of coming up with these strategies and talking to each other and putting us in touch.
So Congressman, tell me the nuts and bolts of the bill.
It's very simple, right? We want to make sure that companies are being responsible when they provide AI chatbots, particularly when they try to mimic any type of personal relationship, even a romantic relationship. We want to make sure that that's not at all, in the world of children to be fooled by this. And also the proper disclaimers, like there's a recognition that we shouldn't be doing that, but there isn't strong enough enforcement and regulation that says, hey, you have to make a disclaimer, you have to make it very clear these aren't real relationships, you have to make that like obvious on any type you're interacting with this, because kids are going to get fooled by this and think that this is something more than it is. And this is a classic case of we needed to be strong about the regulation on the application of AI. This is not hitting the generative computing power that we want to win the AI race with our adversaries, right? That's not saying we don't want to innovate and create advantage for the United States and to be a world leader. We just don't want these use cases that could be very harmful to children to grow into something that they shouldn't.
Congresswoman, is there a specific age that defines what a child is? What is the age that they can use these chatbots freely?
That's an interesting question, but I would say it's easy enough to say that AI companies are not able to provide companion chatbots to underage children.
So 18?
And I would say 18.
Uh-huh.
I would say 18.
So you guys is there a reason you don't have a specific number yet in your legislation?
Well, for me, I guess I came from state government, and understanding in the state of North Carolina, a youth can emancipate at age 16. So certainly it wouldn't be under 16, because above that age, a person can make decisions for him or herself. But I think 18 is a good age. I think throughout high school, where children's minds are developing, we want to make sure that AI chatbots are not distributing harmful content, sexual content, suicidal content that will make kids think that they're speaking with a human and that this human is acting in his or her best interest. We need to make sure that we're protecting our kids from that.
It should be every age. I mean, we should be as a society willing to separate the fact that we need to probably double, triple down on our personal relationships with our family and our friends and our colleagues, and not resort to this. But it's particularly damaging to younger children. I have a son who's got special needs. He's on the autism spectrum, and this would be so easy for him to get manipulated from these type of interactions that are now ubiquitous. And so even though there's already a recognition this shouldn't happen with young children, our job as lawmakers is to make sure that we make it very clear and send a strong message that we want this to be heavily enforced, and like the disclaimers are key to make sure that every time there's an interaction, it's like you are not interacting with a live person, you are interacting with an artificial relationship, that kind of stuff. It's just, we need to make sure that that's strengthened.
So there's pushback on this legislation on multiple fronts. You said that you are a parent.
Must mean it's good legislation.
It must be.
You said you were a parent with a boy. I think you have multiple
we have
children.
4 boys.
Four boys. What do you say to the critics who say that this takes away the parent's role and parental rights?
It assists the parent's role.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't be everywhere at every second. My wife can't be everywhere at every second with the kids, and these applications are becoming ubiquitous. And if we got another bill that is also about, particularly about toys, children's toys, and adding chatbots to them, and not allowing that. So, like, technology is growing faster than we can as parents to be involved in every second. This stuff could be thrown into a video game. That you were like, yeah, my kids are playing football, they're playing a football game, and all of a sudden there could be some interactions that were taking place, and this stuff can slip in, and we just need to be strong. So no, it's only helping and assisting parents in their efforts to be involved in their children's lives.
Parents can't be everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
And there's also concerns from critics who say that there are privacy concerns, that also this could be unconstitutional. I think the Cato Institute has come out and said that this could be unconstitutional. What is your response to that, Congresswoman?
I think that there are ways to protect the privacy of individuals, and certainly that should be first and foremost. Mm-hmm. But to be able to ensure that people's identities, their chat logs, those types of things are not being distributed or used in other ways that don't benefit them, we can make sure that there's regulations that prohibit that kind of use. But to say that we are not going to protect children from these opportunities to interact with non-humans. I had a family come visit me whose son committed suicide after having a relationship with a chatbot. And so certainly I can't sit idly by and think that there's not something that we should be doing. Maybe this piece of legislation doesn't do everything, and maybe there are things that we can do to tweak it later on, but we have to do something. And we're behind the 8 ball in doing something.
This is already passed in broad bipartisan support.
That's right.
The companion version in the Senate has already passed committee, and they care about the same privacy issues that we do in the House, right? The bill, so it's already got a proven track record. Sometimes we like to get out ahead of it on the House side and send over the stuff to the Senate. This is a case where the Senate was out ahead of this one, and we're running this from the House side, and it cleared all those hurdles of privacy from some very, very privacy, constitutionally minded senators as well. So, like, we can do both.
We can do
and
both.
This toes a really good balance between making sure that we're being thoughtful about new emerging technologies and only keeping it to a use case, right? We're not making this so broad. We're making this very specific that we don't want this to become so manipulative to kids.
Congresswoman, you said that we are already behind the 8 ball on this, as children have already suffered, and I'm so sorry about the loss of your family member. Congress has been unable to legislate hardly anything when it comes to internet use, even with children. Is this time going to be different, and why?
I have to say yes, because I do think that there's widespread support to protect our kids, and maybe we're not all on the same page right now as to how we do that, but I do believe that with this piece of legislation we have great support. It is bipartisan, and I think that it is the bill that will move because it is bipartisan and bicameral.
I mean, Valerie and I should have been doing this from the start, right? We're the duo that's going to get it done.
That's right.
This is our first bills. These are our first 2 bills together, and say that some in jest, but we're sincere. We're striking the right chord. We're balancing it, and it's an opportunity to do this.
What does leadership say on both sides?
So you're right about a reluctance to be able to get something done with respect to AI, and you look at regulatory history as technology continues to rapidly emerge, it's always tough to get this done, and usually you are in a lag period when you're regulating something that has become so new and innovative. So we're still suffering from that same concept, but I do think, at least from my perspective, that there's a recognition that this can be harmful to children, and that's a different perspective from leadership. And we're being very clear, this is not, the most important aspect is, to win the AI and innovation race, like, we're not trying to go and regulate or clamp down the ability to compute more quickly, the generative bar within AI. This is the application that sprouts off from that.
That's right.
That's an area that I think there's an agreement that we need to be able to address. And if we can't rally around supporting children, then we've got bigger problems here in Congress than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Congressman, I'm going to ask you both a news of day question. First on reconciliation. Has Speaker Johnson announced what is going to go into that bill, and what are the prospects of it, of 3.0?
There's lots of conversations around what's ultimately going into it. It has not been released yet. As I understand it, we're going to try to mark it up this week in Budget Committee. But we have all the parameters, and we're just trying to decide on what is going to be that portion that can have success. So it's still unclear.
Do you think that this is going to unite the party or be very difficult?
If we meet the right sweet spot to be able to accomplish something important, it can definitely unite.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And does it undermine the appropriations process by moving more funding through reconciliation?
We're sensitive to that. Chairman Cole's very sensitive to that, and so we have to. That's part of meeting the moment and making sure that we're hitting the right spot. So, yeah, it'll be a uniting factor at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And Congresswoman, I know that there's an amendment coming up this week, potentially this week, by Thomas Massey on ending funding for Israel. This is also something that has been very difficult for the Democratic caucus. Leader Hakeem Jeffries put out a letter today saying that he does not support it. Where do you stand, and do you agree with Leader Jeffries' position on this?
My position is developing. Mm-hmm. I tend to be leaning yes to
support it. Mm-hmm. To support it. Do you think that Jeffries should also support it?
I think that Leader Jeffries represents a constituency that is not mine.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you both also have agreed to 5:35 1 minutes, which are a little bit more lighthearted questions. So I'm going to ask you, Congresswoman, I'll start with you first. Since you are from North Carolina, I went to college in North Carolina. I went to NC State.
Okay.
What is your favorite restaurant in your district?
My favorite restaurant right now is Tanya's Cafe.
What kind of food is it?
It is soul food.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, what about you?
And it's also my cousin.
Oh.
Table 25 on historic 25th Street in Ogden. Table 25.
Okay, so
it's a mixture, but it's got one of the best burgers ever. French dip. It's got a variety. It's a really good friend of mine. What was cool about it is he told me he was going to start a restaurant 10 years before he did, and he started a restaurant. And his wife run it. It's sensational.
Oh, that's
it's a cool
amazing.
story too.
Do you ski?
Yes.
What's your favorite mountain?
The Snow Basin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, that's actually where the Olympics downhill and the Super G and everything is. So it's an awesome mountain. There are a plethora of really amazing ski opportunities, though, all within 40 minutes from the airport. It's pretty great.
What is your favorite recreational thing to do in your state? Because North Carolina has a lot of them too.
UNC basketball games?
Actually, I'm an avid walker.
An avid walker. Do you guys have good trails in your district?
We do. We have a great one right near my house. It's called the River Walk. And it's a walk along a river.
What is the best?
I've walked in North Carolina too, 18 holes. And that is a really great way to experience North Carolina.
A lot of golf in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's a great walk too.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes a frustrating walk though, as well.
Have you walked with the president in North Carolina 18 holes or anywhere?
No.
That's a good question.
What is the most challenging part about being a member of Congress?
I think the most challenging part right now is hyper-partisanism.
Mm-hmm.
That's challenging.
Yeah, what's the way beyond it?
The way beyond it is to do what the congressman and I are doing right now, finding common goals, common points of intersection as it relates to the people we serve, and then pushing towards those goals.
What about you, Congressman? What's the most difficult part of Congress?
Just finding an ability to be productive, because there's a lot of gridlock. Gridlock for gridlock's sake is frustrating. Gridlock for good, strong debate and being in an impasse, that's fine. That's why this democracy, this is how this republic was set up. But gridlock for gridlock's sake is really frustrating. I've been able to find a really productive lane by finding members that we can pass bills that will have survivability in the Senate, because their rules are a little different than the House rules, and looking for more opportunities to do that is the way out of it, and we're doing that right now.
Yeah. Well, Congresswoman Valerie Foushee and Congressman Blake Moore, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Good luck on your legislation.
Thank you.
As a mother with a child, I too, hope that there is progress on this. Yeah, because even if I don't even let them use phones, but through school they have access to their laptops.
Can't be everywhere.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for watching 535. We'll be right back.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
For all it takes to be a property owner and the prosperity that comes with it, you have an alliance working for you. The American Property Owners Alliance. Real estate experts, financial professionals, and community leaders standing together to support, protect, and represent millions like you. Homeownership is the American dream. We're here to keep it that way.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the Bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
He is what your show is called, The Decider.
It's Washington's hottest new show, and it has the Beltway buzzing.
Americans, they know BS when they see BS.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Brody Mullins.
Is this era ending and is a new era beginning?
And veteran strategist Lisa Camuso Miller.
Have you ever had to tell a client no?
Talk to the biggest and most influential players.
We wanted $1 million. He said, done.
Rewriting the rules of influence.
Business is going to be on the ballot.
Congress needs to do their job.
They become lapdogs rather than watchdogs.
The people who never talk.
That's such a good question.
Talk to them.
It was kind of fun, actually.
It's Washington's only show by and for insiders.
Welcome to the
Deciders.
Watch weekly right here on 535.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
Congressman Molina, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Appreciate you having me.
Can you explain to people where your district is and what kind of district it is? What do they grow in your district? And is that a big job industry in your district? Talk to me about this bill you have. It's called the Farms Act. What exactly is the problem you're trying to solve with it? Is this something that the administration could address on their own, or does it need to require Congress to pass a law to really fix it? Is this bipartisan at all? Do you have Democratic support? So what's the brass tacks here? Who's your counterpart in the Senate, and what is the path forward you see for this legislation?
Oh my gosh. You know, let me think about that.
You're watching 535.
This is 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
We're live from the Capitol, and 535 starts right now.
We're back, and this is 535. I'm Susan Davis, and I'm joined by my co-contributor, Mariana Sotomayor of Puck News. Illinois Democratic Congressman Sean Casten and Minnesota Republican Congressman Pete Stauber are here to talk about a bipartisan aviation bill that they've been working on together since at least last year. Congressman Casten, I'm going to start with you. It's called the Mental Health Aviation Act. What would it do?
So right now under FAA rules, if you are a pilot, if you're a student studying to be a pilot, if you're an air traffic controller, and you ask for mental health counseling, you are immediately grounded for a minimum of 6 months. You aren't able to go back to work until you've gotten clearance, and there's a shortage of air traffic control, of medical examiners. And the stories, the results of that are tragic. I had a constituent who called me because they found out their son was struggling with mental health issues in his suicide note, where he said, I thought I could muscle through, and I didn't. And so what we've done in this legislation is to say that we need to treat mental health the same way we treat your vision. If you're a pilot and you're struggling with vision, go see an eye doctor and don't lose your ability to fly. And this says, if you disclose, that's not a penalty. Let's get you the care we need. Let's get you checked out right away. It provides funding to have more medical examiners, money to destigmatize the process and make sure people understand it. With Pete's great help, we got this through the House unanimously. It's through the Senate committee, I guess, and we got to get it to the floor now over there.
How would it change the system? You said if somebody seeks mental health care now, they're grounded for 6 months. How does your bill change the way the system works now?
First off, I want to thank Sean for bringing the Mental Health and Aviation Act up. He led it, he brought it to our attention, and being a former police officer, it meant a lot to me, so I want to thank him publicly for doing it. It was a constituent that this is how it works. You're supposed to bring legislation that's near and dear to your heart. But what this is going to do is it's going to allow the aviators and air traffic controllers to ask for help without being punished or grounded for 6 or 8 months before they get an evaluation. We want our aviators and our air traffic controllers to ask for help. We know that at least one in four adults in their lifetime are going to experience a mental health crisis. And it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's actually a sign of strength. We had a colleague do it recently, and we want to be able to make sure that our aviators and air traffic controllers understand that mental health, there's help for you, and it's a sign of strength, and you don't have to worry about losing your job. And this is also about the family too, because people that are struggling with mental health, their family oftentimes is aware of it and not sure. We want them to know there's help for you, and this bill that Sean and I are putting forward it does exactly that. It keeps our skies safer. Nobody has to suffer in silence, nor should they.
What we like to do here is obviously shine a light on any bipartisan compromise, because I feel like usually that is the spotlight isn't there on that. But even just learning about this bill, I had no idea, right? Like, we all travel all the time or get on airplanes. You don't necessarily think about the pilot state of being. And you both touched on this individually, but you had stories or even life experiences where this came to mind for both of you. It just became an issue. And Congressman Stauber, I'd like you both to share what that meant and how this came to be. But Congressman Stauber, you are a former police officer, and you've shared that there's a culture of silence in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped you engage on this issue.
Yeah, so on a personal level, I was involved in a critical incident, and it was a night shift. I remember in the morning when I got lucky, a guy tried to kill me and the gun malfunctioned. So I remember just how lucky I was. I went home, didn't sleep the day shift, didn't tell my wife what happened, and then I go back the next night for the night shift, and at roll call, they're talking about my incident, and the lieutenant says, "How you doing, Pete?" And I said, "I'm doing good, tough hockey player, I've won fights and lost fights." I was just damaged inside from the incident. I knew how lucky I was. And we had a lieutenant that after everybody was gone, put his arm around me. He says, I want you to talk to somebody. And it was our police psychologist. That's exactly what I needed. Early on in my career, I had this happen. So I am an advocate of what this bill does and what Representative Casten and I believe in, that mental health, it's that when you're in a crisis, you have help. I experienced it. I had to ask for help twice in my police career. I think the stigma within the police and EMS profession generally, it's starting to change, and that's what we want. We want people to ask for help and not have to suffer or their families. So I'm really excited about this bill, and again, it's going to keep the gold standard in aviation. It's going to keep us all safer. Nobody should suffer in silence.
Congressman Casten.
So, I mean, I'd mentioned the story about the family that first brought this to us, which is just, it's an unbelievable act of grace to lose your child and just decide you're going to turn this into something bigger. I will say that since we've brought this bill forward, I've lost track of how many other stories you get. Like, I think every time I speak to a group of pilots on this, someone will pull me aside and say, we just lost another one last week. These stories are all out there. And one of the ones that was just shook me up, I was sitting there with there's a pilot mental health association that's advocating for this. And within the pilot unions, they're all aware of this, that you don't know who to call. And so they've sort of developed these little loose networks to try to help each other out, but recognizing that if you call your supervisor, you're in trouble. And so I said to one of them, I said, okay, what happens if you're, in a really stressful situation on the plane? Let's imagine you're the Alaska Airlines pilot where the door flew off the back of the plane.
Right.
Like, you would be legitimately stressed when you hit the ground. Is that a permanent issue? Is that just something you need a day off? You'd like to be able to go to your boss and say, hey, like Pete did in his line of work, to be able to say, I need a little help. And one of the pilots said that he, not on the Alaska Airlines flight, but he said that he'd been involved in a situation similar to that, and the first call he got when he hit the runway was from the scheduling agent telling him what gate to go to next. That was the first call that he got from the FAA. He said the second call he got was from another pilot who had heard what was going on and was currently on his off time in Guam, and he picked him up and he said, you probably need someone to talk to right now. And so he got someone to talk to, but this wasn't a medical professional. This was just people who knew that, in this culture, there needs to be some, something other than self-medication in the Premier Lounge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you see that part of this legislative effort is to change what you say is the culture? Because it does seem like there are resources for people in these industries. It's just the fear of seeking them?
Well, no, there's not resources, unfortunately. The FAA, and I say this with a lot of respect for the FAA, but there's a certain amount of cover your butt going on, because I think particularly after that Germanwings crash, they're keenly aware that if a plane goes down and a pilot is in the plane who had a record of mental health, they could be held accountable. And so there's this sense of like, well, if we don't know about it, then our butt's
we're not
covered,
liable for it. That's
right?
interesting.
And so, and part of the reason why we've had to also provide resources for this is, number one, that's created this culture within the FAA of sort of don't ask, don't tell. But number two, there just aren't enough aviation medical examiners. So right now, a part of the reason why there's this 6-month delay is that it just takes that long to find someone with the resources and the qualifications to meet with you. So what we're saying is, like, you have to provide resources to immediately get people checked out, right? If I say my vision's a little blurry, don't put me in the plane, but if you can get me some corrective lenses, like, that's fine. Maybe you can treat this with a quick bit of talk therapy, maybe you can treat this medically, but get them the resources they need, to stabilize them right away. And then make sure that we have enough aviation medical examiners that they can get the help they need right away, not wait until the pipeline's full. So we really need to restaff that up.
And there's money in the bill to do just as we talked about, more medical examiners.
And we did provide some additional funds to say, which gets to the culture question you asked, of just marketing this, because I think, the sense I got, obviously the pilots who talk to us are very grateful about this.
Yeah.
I am sure there are some pilots who feel stigmatized, who don't want to share it. So we've tried to say, let's put some marketing out just to let people know these are the new rules. This is the culture we want to create.
Is there anything in the bill as well that deals with accountability? Because sometimes we see, a piece of legislation pass. You have all this money that goes towards, hiring medical people and like a number of other places where this could help the issue. But then there's that question, and you just mentioned of, the stigma. It takes a long time for that to go away. Is there any accountability or check-ins that the FAA has to report to Congress, or Congress making sure that the FAA is respecting pilots if and when they come forward, and making sure that they don't get punished if they do find themselves in an incident.
I don't know, I've never seen an administration that didn't carry out the will of Congress.
Fair, fine, that's fair. That's why it's so hard. It's hard.
So I to Sean's point, the accountability is not only with the air traffic controller or the aviator, but also with the FAA. We have to bring the funds there, and we as society and the culture in aviation have to look out for one another. And again, understand that a mental health crisis it's not the end of the world. There are professionals, and we've added money to hire more professionals, medical examiners and psychiatrists, to help us through these moments in our life. Again, 1 in 4 adults, one of us sitting at the chair, will experience a mental health crisis in their life. It's not the end of the world. There's help for you, and we want, and Sean and I talked about this, the next individual that takes their life because of this, it's too many, it's wrong, and we're passionate about that. And I give Sean credit. He brought this from a constituent. He's a good legislator. It was a constituent conversation. He brings it to the halls of Congress. We pass it. We have to get into the law. And again, I've said it many times. I'm proud to be able to co-sponsor with Representative Casten.
I also would say, like, we have a long way to go, but we are so much better on this issue now than when Pete and I were kids. I give young people a lot of credit for normalizing these conversations. I mean, I know you played hockey. I played soccer and rugby. Like, the only medical advice I ever got was walk it off. Yeah. I think the young people have normalized a lot of these conversations, and even, I don't know what you feel in your old police station, but when I go to police stations in my district, everybody is very keen to point out that they've got, that they understand that there are people there who see traumatic events, on a much more frequent basis than the average person, and they need those resources there.
Can I ask you about that, though, on sort of the other end of that? And I have 2 brothers who are police officers who have very openly sought treatment for PTSD, so I'm very familiar with this issue. But do you agree that not all professions are created equal, and that a profession like a police officer or a pilot, where you are responsible for life and death, is it fair to expect that they should have a higher standard of mental health in the line of duty, while flying a plane, while carrying a gun?
So, sure. But there's one question of, are you in a healthy place to do your job, mentally and physically, right? You're going to, fitness tests and, and all the other things that you're going to have. It's a separate question to say, if you need help, can you ask so that we can get you checked out and not trigger, because when you talk to a lot of these people who are, there's one pilot who's been very active in helping us out. He's been grounded for 2 years because he was going through a really difficult divorce and was in a difficult situation. He said 2 years later, that's all in the rearview mirror, but I still can't get my pilot's license back because I asked in a moment of vulnerability. Like, these are not, a lot of these people who are struggling with these issues, this is not a permanent disability.
Sure.
It's just something where they need some help to get back on track.
Quickly, how does the airline industry feel about this legislation?
Well, I think that, I'm hoping they think it's really good, because this helps us increase the gold standard here in our aviation sector. Our aviation is a very safe way to travel, and this is just going to enhance it. I don't believe anybody should suffer in silence, and I believe the airlines think that as well. Nobody should suffer in silence. This is only going to help aviation increase the safety, and it's going to help, again, it goes back to families too. It's going to help the families, and that's important to both of us.
I would also just point out that you don't get things unanimously through the Committee of Jurisdiction in the House, unanimously the floor, and unanimously through the Committee of Jurisdiction in the Senate if there's activist groups that are out there that are opposed.
I want to thank you both for your time talking about this issue. If you'll indulge us, in the couple minutes we have left, we do a little segment called 1 Minute, in which we ask you some non-policy questions. Okay. Mariana, would you want to start?
Yes. Okay. What is your favorite karaoke song? Do you all dabble in karaoke?
Peaceful, Easy Feeling by the Eagles.
There you go.
I guess I'm going to go Thunder Road, Springsteen.
Okay. Can you both sing it? Do you want to right now?
Door slams. Harmonize with me. Mary's dress sways.
I'm passing, Sean.
Congress can be fun.
I preface this by saying you are not allowed to name each other. Who is someone that you consider one of your closest friends on the other side of the aisle, or someone you at least really enjoy working with on the other side of the aisle?
So I'm gonna sort of take the fifth. everybody who I've ever named as my favorite Republican is no longer here. Really like Denver Riggleman, really liked Fred Upton, and I really like John Curtis. You know, John Curtis is at least here, but he's in the lower chamber now. Yeah. So, you know, I'm never going to say I like you, Pete.
It's an omen, a bad omen.
Thank you. For me, it's Jared Golden from Maine.
Yeah.
He and I came in together. He's just a solid individual. He's just got a great family, great story. And he's a really good friend of mine. And we're going to miss him. He decided not to run, and I'm personally going to miss him. He's probably my best friend as the Democrats go in Congress.
You want to take the last question?
Yeah, very quickly. What are you all going to do August recess? I know it's campaign season, but
we're going to try to get some swimming up at the cabin, and I've got 6 kids. We're going to take care of them, just have a fun a couple of weeks.
Great.
I mean, it's an election year. Those babies aren't going to kiss themselves.
Got to make your way around the district.
Yeah, no, we'll be busy in the district. Do a little bit of travel, and then we have, I think similar to you, we've got a family place in Vermont, and my daughter's a freshman in college, and still likes to take week vacations up there with the family, so we'll get some time up there to
got to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I literally just got back from our family week in Maine, so I highly recommend it.
Right on.
Congressman Casten, Congressman Stauber, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
We have to take a very quick break, but we'll be right back. Watching 535, and we'll be right back.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
$1.5 trillion is parked on the sidelines. Projects that would help create good-paying American jobs are stuck in years of burdensome reviews. Permitting reform would unlock over 650 major U.S. infrastructure projects, from new roads and bridges to bringing more energy online. With faster, more efficient permitting, we can unleash America's economic potential. Let's move from waiting to building. Ready, set, let's build.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Brody Mullins here with Adam Kovacevic. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Founder and president of the Chamber of Progress.
That's right.
So let's start in the beginning. You founded Chamber of Progress. Mm-hmm. When and why?
Well, I had been in the tech industry. I was one of the Google DC office's early employees, like the 7th or 8th employee, but also a proud Democrat. I had worked for New Democrats in Congress, one of the founders of the New Democrat Coalition. And for a long time, I think Democrats sort of viewed tech as like their industry. And a lot of Democrats were sort of early tech champions. I think tech had a long honeymoon with Democrats really through the Obama era. After Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, I think that some Democrats plunged from honeymoon to divorce.
Sure.
And I didn't actually think that was representative of where most Democratic voters were on tech, that most Democratic voters were still tech optimists, and I wanted to do something about it. So I started Chamber of Progress in 2021, right after Biden won and Democrats had a congressional trifecta, because I thought it was important to influence the debate that Democrats were having amongst themselves. So we're a trade association, but we're a factional trade association that we're only focused on Democrats.
So let's also rewind the clock a little bit. You talk about Atari Democrats even before then. What were Atari Democrats?
Well, Atari Democrats were really in the 80s, people like Gary Hart, and who were actually like starting to champion tech really at its earliest stages and differentiate themselves from Democrats who maybe were more backward looking in terms of the economy. And so I think Democrats, there's a tradition in the Democratic Party of being kind of excited about the new thing, right? Particularly about innovation. And I think that was really a trend from the 80s through the 90s, really the Obama era, like I said. And so I think that is an important part of our history. And it wasn't just tech because they were excited about tech. They weren't just geeking out. They thought that technology was a positive for actually addressing people's lives, bringing more access, more services, bringing down costs, all those things that Democrats tend to care about.
And we want to focus on Democrats, and you're focused on Democrats, but where were Republicans in the 80s and 90s on tech? Were they just sort of ignoring it? They weren't antagonistic?
They weren't super focused on it. And I think, to be fair, a lot of the people in Silicon Valley were, and still are, Democrats. historically. And so I think that Republicans didn't necessarily see Silicon Valley as a constituency to cultivate. Now, I will say that changed. I think Kevin McCarthy, Paul Ryan, Eric Cantor, when they were in the leadership, they did more. They really started doing more outreach to Silicon Valley and open things up. And of course, there are prominent people in Silicon Valley who are on the Republican side, Larry Ellison, people like that, David Sachs. But I think, if you look at the votes and the donations, still the majority of people in the Valley are going to the Democratic side.
So let's go back to the period when the tech industry is beloved by both Republicans and Democrats. What went wrong?
Well, look, I think part of it is sort of inevitable in the sense that in this country we talk about big things skeptically. Nobody talks about big things being good. And so I think tech as an industry went from somewhat niche, cute, interesting, to basically the leading driver of the American economy, America's top export, and frankly having a lot of control over what people see, what people consume. All that's legitimate. And so I do think it's legitimate for tech to be scrutinized and regulated by policymakers. My beef is that a lot of times in tech policy and regulation, policymakers approach it when we got to do something, anything. And that's not actually how we approach regulation in other industries. Airlines, healthcare. We look at those industries and we say, okay, problem has emerged, let's propose some discrete regulation, let's debate its pros and cons, and then let's implement it. And I think we're still to this day stuck in sort of an immature phase in tech regulation where we haven't moved to that.
So you mentioned Hillary Clinton's loss in 2016. This seems to be a key pivot point. What happened then?
Well, I think after Hillary lost, you saw, frankly, a lot of people on the left sort of invest in a message that Bernie would have won. The reason she lost wasn't because anything about her candidacy personally, that she wasn't far left enough on economics. You saw foundations investing in this attack on neoliberalism, on Obama-era economics. And that really then had its apex in people like Elizabeth Warren in her presidential candidacy. Biden wasn't really on that train, but I think when he won the presidential primary, the people around him decided to sort of broker an arrangement with the Warren crowd, bring her into the administration, and credit where it's due. She had a lot of influence on hiring, staffing decisions, policy decisions in the Biden administration because she cared about the Federal Trade Commission, the DOJ Antitrust Division, and the SEC. Right. Biden, I don't think really cared that much.
Yeah, I think when books are written about this era, that 2016 year was such a pivot point for so many reasons. I mean, think about trade.
Yeah.
We went from pro-trade to anti-trade, boom, right there in 2016. I mean, Hillary Clinton essentially being against Bill Clinton trade deals.
That's right.
And the Democratic Party making this switch. So then we have Biden. Biden came in, I thought he was going to be just like an Obama Democrat. No one's more establishment than Joe Biden. But then he wasn't. He became this big progressive. I think you're right, because of Elizabeth Warren. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, I think partly because he wanted to distance himself, he wanted to do his own thing. I think Biden himself was interested in this appeal to sort of the great man of history model. I can be more progressive. Biden was never as close to Silicon Valley as Obama was. I don't think he saw that as his crowd necessarily. And then I think there were a lot of people they brought into the administration who they didn't really ever resolve tensions among them, right? So for example, on crypto, Biden White House did a executive order on crypto that was actually pretty balanced, and give him credit where it's due. But then Gary Gensler is off launching all these lawsuits against crypto companies really based on no rules at all. And that's what people in the industry remember, the Gensler stuff, not the executive order. And so nobody in the administration was sort of saying, look, we got to actually have a holistic view here. So I think the Biden administration, in some of these areas, particularly business regulation, economics, tech, they let the factions kind of do their own thing without really having a crackdown on them.
And I think another thing that Elizabeth Warren did, and tell me if I'm wrong, was she focused on personnel in the White House.
Yes.
And that's a key to your report.
That's a key part. Anybody, you'll say, she's dogged. She's pushing for her people. She's pushing for their appointments. She has lists. She's organized. The center-left people in the party aren't as organized, and it's sometimes much more reactive. And I think I say this as a moderate. I think the centrist faction, center-left faction in the Democratic Party, is way too reactive to the left rather than saying, here's what we're for. And by the way, not just we're not for status quo, we're actually for reform. I think that's a historical shortcoming of the moderate faction within the Democratic Party.
So name check a couple of these folks that we already know, the Lena Khans, and who are the types of people who Elizabeth Warren was able to get in?
Yeah, I think if you ask people in tech, the things they keep mentioning were Lena Khan, Jonathan Cantor. A lot of that was about antitrust, attack on M&A, bringing cases against big tech.
And then Gary Gensler at the SEC bringing cases against crypto companies and being pretty steadfast in refusing to issue any kind of clarifying rules for crypto, which is what the industry wanted. So those were the things that really stood out, but I think there were other things like trade. I mean, so, I think Warren, Amy Klobuchar, others successfully persuaded Catherine Tai as USTR to kind of take their side in trade matters, not actually defend American tech regulation abroad. Really sit on our hands. And then you look at things like missed opportunities. The Biden administration didn't have a tech jobs plan. They didn't have a tech economic growth plan. They seemed ambivalent about it. They didn't also have a plan for like using technology to make government better, as Obama had done before.
So a lot of this comes from a fascinating report that you guys put out a couple weeks ago called Democrats Techlash Trap, that's on your website. In this report, which I've read a couple times, a bunch of fascinating terms. My favorite one has to be faculty lounge populism.
Right.
What is faculty lounge populism?
Well, look, I think there was a theory by the Warren crowd, Lena Khan, others, that going after tech was going to be good for the Democratic Party in winning back the working class votes. Really, again, since Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, this has been an obsession of the party. How do we win the working class back? And frankly, my view is a big important key to that is that we need to moderate on social issues, immigration, some of the other cultural issues. But there's a faction of the left that does not want to moderate on cultural issues, and instead their prescription, because it's easier, is to go in a much more sort of anti-corporate direction, populist on economics. But that's where, when you look at the theories, what Lena Khan did in terms of like, we got to basically be prescriptively against mergers. We call it faculty lounge populism because it had its roots at like Yale law thinking, right? And I think a lot of that crowd thought that they were doing things that were appealing to populists in a populist way, but the proof is in the election. Kamala Harris did not increase the Democrats' share of working class votes. She had actually decreased. The last Democrat to win the working class vote was Obama, who the progressive left sort of hates. So clearly this plan isn't working, and I think that's an important message of our report, which is to say this war on tech was a double failure because it turned off all these people in the Valley, and it didn't lead to any increase in new votes for the Democratic Party.
Fascinating. So for 9 minutes we've talked about all the problems. You've got 1 minute to solve them. What in your report, outline some of the solutions going forward for the tech industry and rebuilding those bridges to the Democratic Party?
Well, I think, frankly, what the crypto industry has done in investing in politics should actually be done by people in tech generally. I hear a lot of people in Silicon Valley who are Democrats sort of bemoan the fact the party shifted away from tech. That is a problem that they can solve, right? And I think there are people like Congressman Sam Liccardo who are actually working to repair this. He's put together a really great agenda for the New Democrats on tech and innovation. He is supporting candidates in the House who he sees as part of an emerging kind of pro-innovation bench. We need to rebuild kind of a pro-innovation caucus in Congress and support and nurture that group. And I think, frankly, the industry hasn't always been great about doing that.
Adam Kovacevic, president, founder of the Chamber of Progress, thanks so much for joining us. Come back anytime.
Thank you.
I'm Brody Mullins. We'll be back on 535 in a few minutes. You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rome. I've played many roles on TV and film, but today I want to speak to you as myself about a cause that's very dear to my heart. The Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund provides free help to those who have cancer and those who wish to prevent it. They've also worked tirelessly on banning cancer-causing chemicals in our homes and neighborhoods. I want to thank them as a mom for protecting our families. Please donate today at the Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund at stopcancerfund.com.
Welcome back to 535 News. I'm Leanne Caldwell with Puck News. The U.S. has the highest maternal mortality rate, higher than any other high-income country, a rate that is significantly worse for Black women. Since 2020, the Black Maternal Health Caucus has worked to secure funding to address maternal health disparities through the Momnibus Act. So now I am joined by Illinois Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, who has been working on this issue for many years. I've talked to you about this issue for many years.
Yes.
So it's great to have you on 535. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Leanne, for having me.
So let's just talk really big picture first. Describe, I know the Momnibus is a series of pieces of legislation.
That's right.
So can you just describe for me and our audience, like some of the main parts of them?
So the Momnibus is 14 evidence-based bills designed to address every clinical and non-clinical factor leading to preventable maternal death in this country. 80% of deaths are preventable. And so there's a lot that we can do to save moms' lives. So the 14 bills include things to grow and diversify the workforce, to try to address substance use disorders and mental health conditions. When you combine suicide and overdose, that's the leading cause of preventable maternal death in this country. We have a bill to help our veteran moms. We're trying to clean up some of the data collection issues that have been just so pervasive. When states and communities are reporting differently, it's hard to get a true sense of what's going on in the country.
Meaning getting a full look at what the maternal health outcome actually looks like?
That's right.
Okay.
There's just some inconsistencies, so we need to address that. And we have a program called NIH Improve that we set up to make investments in growing the research base. And so that's actually going to be on the floor next week, we think. And so, yes, we're just really excited to continue to make progress in advancing the Momnibus and to continue to secure appropriations wins. We've gotten over $375 million to implement these key Momnibus priorities through the appropriations process. And so these funds are in communities to help them address the maternal mortality crisis.
So when you said that the bill regarding NIH research is going to be on the floor perhaps next week, I was actually surprised because when you were going through the list, I was like, oh, that one seems like the most difficult considering all the cuts at NIH and all the gutting over in that agency. And so can you talk a little bit about that specifically, why that one might actually come up for a floor vote?
Sure. So NIH Improve is a program that we set up in 2019 with then Director Francis Collins, who was as concerned and alarmed about America's rising maternal mortality rate. And they wanted to pull together different disparate initiatives that have been pre-existing at NIH under one umbrella. They called it Improve, based out of the National Institute for Child Health and Human Development. Since that time, we've been able to successfully grow the appropriations for this program now to about mid-60 millions annually. And so what this bill does is it just simply authorizes the program.
Okay.
And so it's been a bipartisan success in that the Congress has reaffirmed basically every fiscal year since fiscal year 2020 to invest in this program, and now we're just offering a full authorization. So it was before Energy and Commerce last month, passed the committee unanimously, and now we're on the suspension calendar for next week.
Oh, that's has any of these Momnibus programs been affected by DOGE or cuts that over the last year and a half?
Well, we know that many of our Republican-led states are the ones that are seeing the most significant increases in preventable maternal deaths. After the pandemic, the Dobbs decision, and now these looming Medicaid cuts, they've been really grappling with an increase in preventable maternal death while also implementing abortion restrictions. And so many of our Republican colleagues here on the Hill have expressed an openness and an interest in embracing maternal health legislation designed to save moms' lives. So there's
Republican colleagues on the Hill.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, that are from these states that have seen a spike in maternal deaths, right? Our maternal death rate is increasing nationwide, not decreasing, because of these three factors: the pandemic, the Dobbs decision, and the looming Medicaid cuts, right? Because even though the Medicaid cuts haven't gone into effect yet, 2027, right, in the statute, we've seen a number of labor and delivery units close, PEDS units close. You know what I mean? A health system may close their clinics.
In preparation for these cuts.
That's right. And so people can't get in to see providers.
So that seems like you are having a little bit of success.
Very excited. The momentum is here.
Why? What are some other factors of why the momentum, and how do you hope to progress it should Democrats win? Yeah.
Well, the Black Maternal Health Caucus has been one of the largest bipartisan caucuses on Capitol Hill since our founding in 2019. And so, every year we have an opportunity to convene, debate, and discuss. And, our approach is that folks join our caucus often for deeply personal reasons, and we don't have an all or nothing approach, right? If someone wants to work with us on appropriations, we welcome that. If someone wants to work with us on an individual bill, let's go. But it's been an all of the above approach that's allowed us to be able to make progress over these years. And so it's just been a steady stream of getting things done. And, we're approaching what I call deal-making season here on the Hill. As you approach the end of a Congress, particularly when there's expected to be some transition in terms of majorities, that's an opportunity for all of us to be able to have some negotiations.
So are you finding that people who might be leaving the Hill are wanting to do some last minute things as well?
Or wanting to put their stamp on the bill, recognizing how much of a priority is for a Democratic majority.
Yeah.
I mean, we're up to over 200 co-sponsors on the full Momnibus package. We've, done a lot of work to consolidate support in the Democratic caucus.
There was a previous version of Momnibus that was passed during the first Trump administration, right?
No.
Oh, okay. What happened?
It was
there?
introduced.
Introduced.
It was introduced the week before the pandemic, and everything shut down. And so we worked hard to, make sure that it was socialized, but COVID was such a crisis.
Right.
Our first Momnibus bill passed in November 2021, the Protecting Moms Who Served Act under Joe Biden.
Okay.
To help our moms in the VA.
Okay. Are you seeing any sort? You said that the maternal maternal health mortality. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I totally forgot that word for a
second. No
problem. Has been increasing over the years.
Yes.
Have there been any bright spots anywhere as far as a specific state or a specific region?
Oh, absolutely.
So can you talk about some of those?
So the states have been very energized, and they have pulled together and passed their own versions of the Momnibus. They use this same word. So New Jersey has had a Momnibus, Pennsylvania, Ohio, California, Arkansas has had a whole maternal health package. And so states are able to do generally a combination of like workforce issues, helping some nonprofits, and then Medicaid expansion is what they've generally done and called it a Momnibus bill. And so that's created this really synergistic effect because states are already beginning to tackle the challenge. And so now we're unlocking additional federal resources to support that work.
Yeah. If the Congress passes a CR, which they are expected to, it's supposed to be only short term. We'll see what happens in the lame duck. What is the impact going to be on this menu of legislation, of bills?
Well, as I said, since about fiscal year 20, we've been able to secure $375 million in funds that were based out of the Momnibus. So we're just going to keep growing those investments. The key priority for us is making sure that we can also advance our authorizing legislation, right? Because everything's not been able to be implemented through appropriations. Some things you have to move through authorizing committees. And so we're moving on a dual track, and we're tracking on several bipartisan bills that are either bipartisan in the House or in the Senate or both. And using every single opportunity to move them forward. So that might be the NDAA. That might be tagging along on an omnibus package. That might be, there's just different opportunities, and we're not going to let any go to waste.
Yeah. Are you worried about Republicans' reconciliation if they do a 3.0 bill, that there might be further cuts to healthcare spending? We don't know what is in this package yet, but have you guys gotten any sort of insight that there could be some impact on Momnibus or other health-related legislation?
I am not. I have no reason to be concerned about maternal health investments, but obviously the Medicaid cuts are devastating for moms and families in this country, and any further action to restrict access to Medicaid, to close rural hospitals, to disinvest from providers. This regulation out of the Department of Education that puts a cap on the student loans is obviously negatively impacting the healthcare workforce, and that got its roots in the Big Ugly Bill. All of that is a real gut punch to the ability to save moms' lives, and so we've been working, obviously, to be able to restore resources.
What else is there, should, again, Democrats take control of the Hill, of Congress? What is kind of like the the pie-in-the-sky legislation that you would love to pass that would help on this issue?
Well,
is there one thing, or is it literally just a series of bills reaching from all different points to help overall?
I mean, literally, we need to pass the entire Momnibus. The Momnibus is the comprehensive package to address every clinical and non-clinical factor leading to preventable maternal death. And I want people to understand that, because this is not a cancer moonshot. We're not trying to find a cure here. We know what to do. What we're talking about is harnessing the political capital and just prioritizing this issue. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And, you know, here on the Hill, we like to debate and discuss. You know what I mean? We like to pour over these figures and tables and, you know, have the best experts come in and advise us. We've done all that work, right? The evidence is so clear about what we need to do. And we talk a lot about healthcare crises, often as if there's no solution that we could embrace. That's not the case for maternal health and maternal mortality in particular. The Momnibus is the solution. We just need to decide to do it.
As you very well know, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. So
They did.
Black representation on the Hill in Congress could be diminished next year and after the new Congress. Do you worry that that will have an impact on the Momnibus?
Well, we know that this crisis has touched zip codes all across the country. Every single zip code has seen provider shortages. We've seen moms die of preventable causes, you know, and we know that this intervention, the Momnibus, is designed to help all moms. And so while Black moms experience the highest rates of preventable maternal death, it is not something that's only for Black Americans. And so that's how we've been able to get such a wide group of people to support the bills, because they can see the impact in their own communities. And so when I look at like our Republican co-sponsors, you know, we're really spanning kind of a wide ideology. We got Senator Sullivan from Alaska on a bill. We have Congressman Fitzpatrick on a bill. We have Gus Bilirakis in Florida on a bill. You know what I mean? There's just like these different folks who understand the need to deal with this issue. And we work with colleagues of all racial backgrounds.
Yeah. I want to ask you a news of day question.
Okay.
One issue facing the Democratic caucus this week is a piece of legislation by Thomas Massie on Israel, cutting off funding $3 billion worth of aid to Israel.
Yes.
Where do you stand on that?
I'll be voting for it.
How come?
Well, because the Israelis are out of control. Lebanon, Gaza, there's no reason for us to continue to make these investments at this time.
Do you think that Leader Jeffries, who put out a letter today opposing the legislation, do you think that it was the wrong position for the leader of the party to take?
No.
Why?
He's been very forthcoming about his position on this issue, and there's a variety of positions as we encounter and reflect on the war in Gaza, the U.S. role in rebuilding Gaza, our role as an ally, you know, the relationship that the United States has with the Israeli people, our responsibilities to be able to provide for their security, and Democrats have a whole host of perspectives. You know, there's a number of folks who are very animated around self-determination for the Palestinian people, making sure that there is a state that is secured for the Palestinian people. And then obviously we have this ongoing conflict in Iran, which is very troubling. And my community is not supportive of the conflict in Iran. And we have what's going on in Lebanon. And so when, you know, we take on all of these circumstances, we have a big diverse caucus as House Democrats. And we had a series of discussions that we were able to express our points of view, and the leader expressed his in that letter today.
Ever since the war started, the issue of Gaza and Israel has been very difficult for the Democratic caucus, divided the caucus. We saw what happened in the 2024 presidential election, how hard that issue was for Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris. How does the party unite around an issue? Do they need to unite around a position when it comes to Israel specifically? It seems like the party is pretty united around Gaza and support for the Palestinian people, but when it comes to Israel specifically, how does the party unite around it? Do they need to?
Well, I think that the question more so is, you know, when we have an opportunity to vote, are we doing it in a clear-eyed way? This is the first chance that we've had to vote on like a standalone question of funding since this conflict has begun. Okay, and this conflict, I mean Gaza.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Iran, right? We have
so
not
like
had
3
a vote.
years or 3,
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
And so,
2.5
you
years.
know, I think that this is healthy, and we're probably going to see more. And this is not about being divisive, right? Every member represents their district, and there is a whole host of opinions on U.S. foreign policy, right? We don't isolate any other foreign policy, Venezuela, and be like, oh my God, you know, you guys are so divided over it. Like, no, people have a whole host of opinions, like what the president's doing in Cuba.
Yeah,
you know, there's a whole host of
voters,
opinions.
except for Democratic voters, are very animated about this issue.
They are,
and
very
people
much.
have lost their seats in large part, because of this.
But this issue is different than some of the other U.S. foreign policy issues because of advocacy, because of the influence on campaigns. You know what I'm saying? Because of
you're talking about AIPAC and the
not only AIPAC, but there is a larger pro-Israel lobby that is very active and engaged. You know, there's a number of organizations that are active and engaged in campaigns, and that is something that has been a very there's been a lot of candor in that discussion in Democratic primaries, which is healthy, and I think is very good.
Great. You have also agreed to, on a much lighter note, 5:35, 1 minute. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
First of all, what are you doing in your August recess?
Oh, I'm doing town halls.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
I've been to one of those.
I know you have, and Leanne knows that when we do town halls, this is how we do it in America. When we do town halls, we give the person the mic. There's none of this pre-screening nonsense, and we have a discussion. And Leanne was there when I took the unpopular opinion stance of calling for impeachment.
Yes.
Before the impeachment, I was the first frontliner in 2019 back in the day, and Leanne came to visit. And so we're going to do it again.
Oh my gosh, it was a great town hall.
Thank you very much.
I learned a lot.
Thank you.
We spent a lot of time together.
We did.
Yeah. So more town halls. What do you think the topics are going to be in your town halls this cycle?
Everything. People are very animated about the war in Iran. They're very animated about the decimation of the Department of Education. Our local school districts are seeing the impact of those resources being withheld. And folks don't listen, we believe in investing in our young scholars, okay? People will approve every referendum to help their kids have a chance for success. And to see the Trump administration come in and basically try to eliminate this important federal resource, folks aren't having that. So yeah, we're talking about that. We're talking about these costs. We're talking about, you know, moving forward.
Yeah. For the next time I come to your district, what is the best restaurant?
Okay, so I recommend to visitors 2 places.
Okay.
Number 1 is a restaurant called Portillo's. And so Portillo's is known for the Chicago-style hot dog.
Okay.
But you can also enjoy a beef sandwich with the Italian sausage and the hot giardiniera.
Oh.
Okay. A Chicago-style beef.
Yeah.
Okay, you should do that. And then I also recommend Lou Malnati's.
Okay.
Now, Chicagoans will call it Lou Malnati's, and it sounds like one word, but it's a person's name, and it's Lou Malnati's. It's Chicago-style pizza, meaning the sauce on top.
Oh, that's my
the
favorite.
thick cheese and a buttery crust.
Okay, thick crust, like deep dish?
It is
technically deep dish, but it is not like the doughy crust. It is
Okay.
Lou Malnati's is distinguished in the crust.
Okay.
And you get it Chicago style,
Uh-huh.
which includes the Italian sausage.
Yes.
And it's very good, and you will be so happy. And you will need a nap afterwards, so don't at me when you're like, oh, I thought I was going to be able to just
Go
run.
for a run, yeah.
No, it's not that kind of a meal, but it's going to be so good.
Great. Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, thank you so much for talking about the Momnibus, which
Yes.
is why you were here, but also the best pizza in your district.
Let's go. Come visit.
All right. Next, we are talking about securing infrastructure from Adversaries Act, which is NEPA permitting reforms and the importance of the supply chain, with the one guy who can talk about it all next. This is 5:35. We'll be right back.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back. Congresswoman, we only have a couple minutes,
Okay.
which is perfect for our 535 1 minute.
Should I be afraid?
Who's the smartest member of Congress?
So I'm really putting you on the spot here.
You know, don't tell anybody this.
I'm too much of a politician to answer that question.
This is crazy.
What's the best committee? I do like them all.
On you, baby.
That was good. That was good.
For all it takes to be a property owner,
and the prosperity that comes with it. You have an alliance working for you. The American Property Owners Alliance. Real estate experts, financial professionals, and community leaders standing together to support, protect, and represent millions like you. Homeownership is the American dream. We're here to keep it that way.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
There are moments that shape an organization's future. A policy shift, a crisis or investigation, a market shock. When that moment hits, the clock starts. Markets move in minutes. Regulators, employees, and customers respond instantly. Narrative helps leaders respond with pace, engage stakeholders with precision, and position brands with perspective. So when challenges emerge, you can navigate complexity and lead with clarity before the narrative is defined for you.
Here on Capitol Hill, the 535 are in charge, the members of Congress. But in a democracy, in the people's house, you need to be heard as well. So if you have questions or comments or ideas, submit them to us at 535.news, because here with us, the floor is yours.
Welcome back to 535. I am very excited to nerd out with Congressman Dusty Johnson.
Why do people always use that phrase with me?
Because you're a policy wonk and you find yourself in the middle of very big negotiations, trying to broker peace, you know, describe and get people to understand certain policies. So it's true.
That's me.
I do like going to you to be like,
superpower.
Okay, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a number of things that are coming up. You're on a number of relevant committees that are obviously trying to get a lot of work done before the end of the year.
We do try to do work around here.
It's amazing.
It doesn't always go like we intend.
Fair. But there is work that happens behind the scenes, and we like to showcase that. The Surface Transportation reauthorization is coming up. It is called the Build America 250 Act, which is pretty timely. I want to start by digging in to the Securing Infrastructure from Adversaries Act, which is part of this broader package. I mean, can you just outline, you know, what exactly does it do for people who may not know?
Yeah, so first off, when you talk about the Surface Transportation Bill, we're really talking about the Highway Bill. Now, we try not to call it the Highway Bill anymore because it deals with lots of things that aren't highways, like railroads and other surface transportation things. But more people know it colloquially as the Highway Bill, a really important 5-year package. And it's the kind of thing we work really hard to do on a bipartisan basis. And indeed, we passed it out of the committee, the Transportation Committee, on a strong bipartisan vote. And I think that's important. There are still some things that we've got to do together as a country. Transportation infrastructure should be one of them. Particularly my piece of this bill deals with making sure that we don't give the Chinese Communist Party and their partners even more power over our infrastructure. LiDAR is a really exquisite technology that can be used to spatially connect and kind of map everything. And really, China dominates LiDAR. And to the extent LiDAR is used on vehicles and in airports and on bridges and roads, they have, I think, access to too much information about us.
So LiDAR, for people who don't know, I didn't even know the acronym before I started reading more about this. It is Light Detection and Ranging Map Technology. And obviously, like, we just think about the ability of any kind of mapping technology. We use it every day in our phones and things like that. This is obviously at a much grander scale. We're at a time where there is so much innovation around us, so many questions about, well, who does have the greater capability? Who is managing this? And at some point in time, especially whether I'm talking to you or someone else in the chair, the conversation turns to national security. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And like, just how does Congress want to be able to surveil might not be the right word, but make sure that China is not, and other potential adversaries are not trying to, get our information? Like, how can you make sure that that is not happening?
Sure, they are. I mean, there is no country that's ever been better at economic espionage than China. They steal. One out of every 5 large American companies has had a massive intellectual property theft by China or their partners. It's a major problem. But one thing I figured out being on the Select Committee on China is that making sure America wins this strategic competition against the Chinese Communist Party is really more about America than about China. There are limited things that we can do to hold them back. Now, there are some of those things, but this is really more about, is America investing in America? And I'm pretty concerned we're missing the boat. I mean, number one, for so long we've been sleepwalking through the threat. Number two, it's even worse than that now. In that areas like artificial intelligence, we have so many Americans who are actively trying to push away this powerful tool. We can't stop the AI revolution. We couldn't have stopped the Industrial Revolution. We couldn't stop the computer revolution. We can't stop the Internet revolution. All of those things were disruptive, but they left a far more prosperous world in their wake. Those countries and companies and families that were best able to use the technology, best survive the disruption, we have got to stop being so anti-AI in this country. China will build those tools. China will use those tools. Will America unilaterally disarm?
Yeah, I want to get back to surface transportation, but on this subject, because it is one that is hotly debated, and many people are putting proposals about how do you counter AI, how do you regulate AI, how do you embrace AI. I mean, where do you think Congress should go from here on that specific issue in particular, especially when you're taking into consideration the national security implications?
Yeah, my initial reaction was that Congress should kind of not do anything for a little while, because I wanted to see AI develop so we could get a sense of what are its threats and what are its capabilities. I still think that's generally the right approach, but I think some very minimum guardrails should be put in place. Now, we don't want to tie one arm behind our back, because Lord knows China won't, but I do think now that we see the tremendous harm that can be done, I think we need a certain morality, a certain set of guardrails in place so that we don't have this evil spread too quickly. I am really nervous about states overregulating in this space, though, because if we overregulate, either at the federal or the state level, we will stop innovation and will enable China to go places that we won't even be able to defend against.
Interesting. I wanted to go back to the transportation bill. This is its own conversation in its own. You were able to get an amendment into the bill that essentially, this is again one of those things that you don't think about, but you guys do. Truck weight.
Yeah.
That, again, something I don't think about all the time. Connect the dots for us here. So how does that program, essentially, it could help just alleviate Americans who are wondering what's going on with the economy, trying to make ends meet?
So I think it's really important that we don't unduly damage America's roads. We know that big, heavy weights can be big damagers of the roads. So I started from a position of saying, why would we want heavier trucks? That's just going to beat up the roads. We don't have enough capacity in this country. And part of the reason that we see so much upward pressure on prices is that our supply chains have been too much optimized for efficiency and not enough for resilience or capacity. By adding a 6th axle on these trucks, so you kind of spread the higher weights out a little bit more, you can actually do less damage with a heavier load than you would with a lighter load with only 5 axles. Now, that is not a universally held opinion. This is very controversial. The railroads hate this idea. And so what my part of the bill would do is just say, let's give a small number of states the ability to opt into a pilot program, to try this for a few years, to see what are the safety implications. I think it'll be easy. I think it'll be safer because 6 axles give you another set of brakes. I think it'll be better on the roads. But let's allow states to try. And we were able to, in a bipartisan way, get that amendment onto the bill.
Okay. Something else that you have always kind of spoken about it more so a couple years ago. Now Democrats are interested in this. More so a couple years ago. Now Democrats are interested in this. Where should Congress go from here? You obviously have only a limited amount of time on Capitol Hill, essentially retiring at the end of this congressional term. Where should Congress go from here on permitting? Do you see any good bills that you hope can get pushed through or are taken up in the next Congress?
Interesting. Rarely does a book really change the conversation in D.C. None of us are reading as much as we should, but Abundance, a book from some center-left thought leaders, talked about how they were growing frustrated with the left sort of saying no to everything, and that creating more development, more investment, more capital was going to be a way to help working class families and to get important things done, whether in renewable energy or elsewhere. That Abundance book has really allowed, I think, the center left to get excited about having this country build again. Unfortunately, at the same time, the American populist right has kind of pulled away from building a little bit. Yeah. We've got a lot more populists on the far right and the far left who don't want us to be doing much in the way of building and construction. But it is way too hard to build things in this country. It is an almost uniquely American problem. The same highway project that you can get greenlit in Germany in 6 months, they have a statutory shot clock that it's got to be approved in 6 months. Sometimes you can get done in 6 years in America. We have made it too hard. We could never do the Eisenhower Interstate System, the Tennessee Valley Authority, rural electrification, universal service, the Missouri River dams. These things you could never get done today, and I think that's a shame. If we want the next century to again be an American century, we need to get back to having America be the birthplace of big ideas and big investments.
As someone who, again, finds themselves in a number of different policy discussions, what do you hope? And this kind of goes across the board, because you are looking at the end of your time here on Capitol Hill, that the House and the Senate could be able to get done. There's just, I'm sure, so many policies that you can think of that are important, but if you could really pick like one or two that you could tell, a couple of your friends, you've got to keep pushing this, and this is why.
Yes, I do think siting and permitting are really important, and there is some bipartisan agreement starting to come into focus. It's a difficult issue to do in an election year. Right. Second, healthcare affordability, particularly in the area of pharmaceuticals. In America, we do pay a lot more, and both President Biden and President Trump had and have some innovative ideas. Both were able to put some of those ideas into place, but I still think that there is more for us to do. And then I also think we need to restore a little bit of civic mindedness around here. We are so interested in fighting, and the rise of extremism on both the right and the left is not consistent with the best interests of America. I would love to see more of us behave like big boys and big girls around here and talk about how finding common ground is the most powerful way for us to strengthen America.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is your debut, right, on 535?
I am very excited.
Good, come back.
Dear Diary, today was a day.
Well, come back anytime to talk about all of the number of things you're still working on. Appreciate
Thanks much.
it. Thank you. Make sure to come back tomorrow. We obviously have a very, very full show. We're going to be talking to a number of lawmakers, Dina Titus, Juan Ciscomani, and Christian Menefee, and many others more. Again, on behalf of all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. If it matters to the 535, it very much matters to us. Have a good one.
Oh my.